Blog Talk Radio.
Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And in the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I see aspiring to be free. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Within and without, above and below, yeah. East, west, north and south, I sense your presence. Without and within, below and above, yeah. East, west, north and south, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. In the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I find in tune with the divine. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. Restore the balance of the universal mind. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. For to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shabbat Shalom, holy angel of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence.
The first Earth Goddess Rising Retreat is set for July 11, 12, and 13 of 2014 and will be held in stunning Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Come join us with other men and women from around the world for yoga, meditation, classes, organic meals, dance and music festivities, healing workshops, hot mineral springs, and more. Want more information? Visit earthgoddessrising.com and cash in on the early bird ticket sales, earthgoddessrising.com.
Thank you for joining me here tonight on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I'm your hostess this evening. The music you were listening to at the beginning of the show is I Sense Your Presence. It's by Shemshai. And I just want to extend a welcome to everybody, whether you're joining us for the first time or whether you listen to the show and you're coming back and listening to what we have going on tonight. I do want to mention that we are now streaming live in 3 additional places besides Blog Talk Radio. We are on TalkStream Live, StreamFinder, and PEN, also known as Para Encounters Network. And I welcome everyone listening through there as well. So I appreciate also tonight's sponsor, Earth Goddess Rising. Great to have them. They've got a fantastic event going on, so make sure you check them out at earthgoddessrising.com. And here at Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, I look at the different ways that compassion exists in our lives, how to remove our blocks, resistances, frustrations, and more. And some weeks I'm discussing different aspects of how compassion is in and affects our life and the different areas of compassion. Some weeks we're doing more exercises and practical implementations, and many times, like tonight, I've got fantastic guests on our show so that you can learn about their work and how other things complement and work with compassion. And then I also highlight different musical artists along the way. Last year we got to have Stephen Halpern and Peter Cater on, both Grammy nominees there, and I'm working on some fantastic lineup of musical guests for this year as well, so you'll see those names starting to pop up here pretty soon. And in my own work, I focus on helping people find and use compassion in their everyday lives. I've created the Genesis Clearing Statement, and if you've missed it, you can catch it in our archive shows. I've also authored 4 books, the most recent being You, Me, Life, Dreams, and its companion workbook, and also the first 2 books I put out, Activating Compassion and its companion workbook. And then in addition, I have created the Compassion Tour, which is a multi-state nationwide tour, including workshops, retreats, seminars, book signings, and fundraising events. You can follow events available to register for through jessieannnicholsgeorge.eventbrite.com, and I've actually got a whole series of events up there right now. It's actually, including what's coming up, about 7 more events happening over the next year, so you definitely want to take a look at those. And just a reminder, if you enjoy the show this evening, make certain that you tell your friends, family, significant others, share it with all those Facebook buddies out there and let them know what's going on, because I know when I'm sharing things, I always have somebody that comes on and says, that is just what I needed to find out about tonight. That's just what I was thinking. That's just what I was focusing on. So you never know whose life you're going to be able to change just by sharing that little link out there. So go ahead and give it a try. I keep all the archive shows, by the way, on my page of the Main Street Universe tab on my website, and that's jessieannnicholsgeorge1.com. Just check out the Main Street Universe tab. You'll see my name under there. Click on there. All of my archived shows are there for you. In addition to that, you can also get the show as a podcast at iTunes and TuneIn.com, and it's also available on my YouTube channel. So whatever your preference is, it's there. Now, before we get started on everything, let's open to see what name of God is lending our energy to the show tonight, because those that have listened before, I'd like to delve into the 72 Names of God by Yehuda Berg. And I love Yehuda's work just because, he puts things in these everyday terms, and he takes these big concepts and makes them tangible and understandable for us, and that's what I do in my work as well. So let's see what he's got tonight for us. And the name of God that we're dealing with tonight is healing. Okay, that's the common name anyways, is healing. And the message he's got here is, the concept of sickness extends beyond illnesses that affect or afflict the body, and it includes the poor health of a business, an ailment in a relationship, and emotional illnesses, such as anxiety and depression. With the right tool, we can heal all manner of dis-ease. And the insight that he gives on this is, Moses became the liberator of the very slaves he had helped to rule. Because of this tremendous transformation, the letters that compose his name hold great spiritual power. This particular configuration transmits the forces of healing. There are two ways to fully activate this power of healing. One, think about others. Meditate on people who also need healing. As the energy of healing passes through us to assist others, we automatically receive the benefits ourselves. The more we share, the more we receive. Two, be accountable. Without question, this is a difficult step to take. We must lose the victim mindset. We must realize it was something we did in this life or a past life that brought about illness. Immediate causes such as the foods we eat or even our genetic makeup are simply the weapons that inflict illness upon us. They are not the causes, they are the effects. One person smokes 4 packs of cigarettes a day and lives to a ripe old age. Another never smokes but still contracts lung cancer. Get the picture? Blaming someone or something absolves us from all personal responsibility. But if we accept responsibility 100%, then and only then will the tools of the 72 names of God arouse the light of the Creator so we can be healed. If you're having doubts about this provocative spiritual truth, return immediately to taking a look at a previous energy that we dealt with and talked about last week, which is eliminating negative thoughts. Now, the meditation he provides in here is, the power of this name brings you the energy of healing at the deepest and most profound level of your being. Why? Because you accept full responsibility for your present state and condition, and you concentrate on others who also need healing. Okay, that's one of those great things where, when you help others, you help yourself, and I talk about that in my work of activating compassion. Now, we know the common name is healing. The actual name is Mem-He-Shen. Mem-He-Shen. And this information, if you'd like to go back and check it out during the week, is up on my website. It's going to go up right after the show, so you can go back and reference that. Again, that's going to be on my tab of the Main Street, my page anyways, of the Main Street Universe tab on my website, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. And I've got one more little thing. I want to get your mind thinking about our topic tonight, because healing, I think that was a really great fit for what our guest is doing tonight. He talks about healing ourselves, healing others, healing the universe in his work, really. And he talks about it by weeding out hate. So that's going to be an interesting thing. But before we go on break, let's get a little thought going here. How powerful is the connection we have with nature? Could it be telling us everything we know? Could conscious gardening be as much of an internal process as an external one? Spring is here, and life is starting to pop up in many parts of the world. New life is budding forth, green, and flowers are starting to show their faces. More and more people are getting conscious about what they are using on their lawns and how they are caring for things. However, as this spring sets forth its energy, I would like you to take an internal journey with this and with your gardening instead of just an external one. Being that life has a more external focus over the next few months, this will also help us to create harmony and balance between the masculine and the feminine energies. This year, conscious gardening is going to take an even deeper focus for me, although I've been putting this in practice for quite some time. This is going to be putting an internal consciousness to the external action. This process has actually made pulling the weeds a much more enjoyable activity for me. It can also help us bring a much-needed healing to the earth and the universe. This year, as the weeds start to emerge along with all the other beauty, instead of spraying them to get rid of them, make a true connection. The dandelions, for example, in my yard are turned into delicious salads and teas, and this year I'm making chips out of them, a lot like kale chips are done. Instead of being irritated by them, I've learned to see their value. Now, instead of seeing the weeds and plants around you as good or bad, see them as what you want or don't want in your space. This is like seeing people not as good or bad, just people you want around you or don't want around you. Next, as you pull out what you don't want, aka the weeds, after all, weeds are only plants that we don't want in our space, think about removing also negativity, hate, or other things that you don't want as a part of your life. For example, talk with it, saying, I neither see you as a plant, good or bad. However, you are not working for me in my space, and as I remove you, I also remove hate, distortion, fear, etc. from my life and this world. However, both internally and externally, we want to remove things by their roots. Otherwise, they may come back stronger and more forceful than before. Marc Daniels has a background in gardening, which has spanned many years through his family. He has created entire campaigns on weeding out hate. In this type of process, pulling out toxic weeds from our environment and also weeding out hate in the world, a toxic weed in our world. He shares a great deal of the parallels of gardening to our soul and life. While to a certain extent we cannot control weeds coming up in our life, how we treat them and what we do with them is completely our choice. If a toxic weed shows up in your yard or as a person in your life, it is up to you to consciously take that energy and transform it into something useful, or to thank it for the lessons that it brought you and then get rid of it. Actually, my experience is that with people, when you are able to appreciate the lesson they bring, they tend to leave your life or transform on their own. Instead of getting caught up in anger and frustration at the weeds in your life, ask what benefit they bring and what are they here to teach you. For example, hate teaches us how to love more. When we learn how to love more, we won't have so much hate to deal with. What have you learned from gardening? Do you allow yourself a more complete connection and experience with your yard and space? How can tasks like weeding that people normally don't like become empowering for you and those around you? Now, this week our guest focuses on a component of compassion that is related in the aspects in my books of seeing with your heart. This reminds us that in order to create rewarding experiences for ourselves and others, we need to look for the lesson and the challenge, the opportunity that is before us. Where there is hate, we are given the opportunity to be the example by showing love. And I'm going to take a short break. When we return, I'm going to have Marc Daniels with us, and he's going to be sharing his work with weeding out hate. The song I have for you during the break tonight is called 10 Commandments. It's by Claire Hedin, and if you'd like to check out more of her work, you can do so at www.clairehedin.com. That's CLAREHEDIN.com, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Anything that they have, rest content with who you are. Lift up my name to repeat your have made. You shall not covet anything that they have. Rest content with who you are, Lord. Invoke my name to appease your vanity covenant you have made up and you shall rest one day if heaven that belongs to another from slavery. Do not covet anything they have. Honor your father, your mother, that you may live long and enjoy the land that I have given you. Rest content with who you are, deny your neighbor. You shall not idolize a thing you have made. You shall not covet anything that they have. Rest content with who you are, Lord. Invoke my name to appease your vanity covenant you have made up and you shall rest one penny seven that belongs to another from slavery. Do not covet anything they have. Honor your father, your mother, that you may live long and enjoy the land that I have given you. Rest content with who you are, deny your neighbor. You shall not idolize a thing you have made. You shall not covet anything that they have. Rest content with who you are, Lord. Invoke my name to appease your vanity covenant you have made up and you shall rest one day.
The first Earth Goddess Rising Retreat is set for July 11, 12, and 13 of 2014. Embrace your divine feminine and balance the masculine. Nourish your body, mind, and spirit with a 3-day program intended to inspire, clear, and heal your being. You don't want to miss out on the great early ticket sales. Need more information? Explore earthgoddessrising.com. Cash in on the early bird ticket sales today. earthgoddessrising.com.
Welcome back. You are listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, and my name is Jessie Ann Nichols George. I am your hostess this evening. You were just listening to a song by Claire Hedin called The Ten Commandments, and her work can be found at www.clairehedin.com. That's CLAREHEDIN.com. And again, a special thanks to our guest tonight, Earth Goddess Rising, not our guest, but our sponsor tonight, Earth Goddess Rising. But I would like to get to my guest tonight, and that would be Marc Daniels. He is the founder of Weed Out Hate, and he is taking his grandfather's vision of nurturing trees and shrubs, which connects homeowners to nature. Boy, I am just twisting on my tongue here tonight, so it's a good thing I'm going to be letting him talk in a minute here. And he takes that to the next level, intending to better connect future generations of gardeners and kindergartners with nature for the higher purpose of improving the fabric of society. Weed Out Hate removes the obstacles that prevent us from feeling and drawing upon the strong roots that we already have, and assist in enriching and stimulating our education roots. Marc says that it empowers even the smallest child to condition his future self, as well as the future garden, through learning to remove acculturated prejudice. He has spent 30 years of his professional life working with the green industry, and the past 5 years focused on researching the spiritual, cultural, and ecological roots of global gardening trends, and feels it is time to sow the seeds of inspiration and wisdom. And we're taking a look at Marc's work here tonight, and you can learn more about his work at www.weedouthate.org. And I've got his mic opened up here, and I want to say, Marc, it is so nice to have you on the show tonight. I know we connected a while back, but I just love the work you're doing.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. It's a real honor for me to be interviewed by you this evening.
And, I would love to start off, Marc, with having you share a little bit about your journey into this work. Who is Marc and what brought him into doing this work that he's doing now?
Well, I spent the first part of my career, my life, working within the context of a family business. My grandfather invented an irrigation tool called the Ross root feeder that you connect to a garden hose and you stick it in the ground to deep water, deep feed trees and shrubs. And about 10 years ago, I began the process of thinking to take my grandfather's vision to the next level, that which he started in bringing millions of homeowners closer to gardening, closer to nature, by nurturing nature at the deepest roots. I began to envision possibilities to bring the act or hobby of gardening to the next level, to use gardening as a means to an end to help unclog and detoxify the blockages that keep us from feeling the strong spiritual sustenance that wants to nurture us through our roots. And to these ends, I came up with an idea of, I did the research, I came up with an idea, came up with a conclusion that if we could only get parents and teachers to inspire children to relate weeding the garden as if they were actually weeding out hate, we'd be on the right track. And if you think about how often weeds pop up in the garden, just think what would happen if we were able to get these kids to think about weeding out hate every time they rooted out a weed. It would be wonderful. It would change. It would be a game changer for society.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a huge game changer. I mean, if every time, and I think of all the things that kids go through growing up, and I think about even myself, what I went through growing up, and, instead of getting wrapped up in all these fights and arguments, I would have been much better to just go, I wasn't in a lot of them, don't get me wrong, but, I would have been much better to just have that consciousness to go pull weeds. And a lot of times, actually, I did. I would go turn to the sweet peas in my garden or something like that in our yard, or, go sit next to the lemon tree or something like that, because it was just, really that nature connection was so important.
Well, it's interesting you brought up Yehuda Berg. He was an individual who had a close connection to Kabbalah. He learned ultimately from the wisdom of an individual by the name of Yehuda Ashlag, one of the greatest Kabbalists in the 20th century. And I spent the past number of years in my work taking weekends off, going to Israel and learning Kabbalah firsthand. And I began to understand the huge power in the letters of the Torah and how to use them, and just the potential for mixing Kabbalah with gardening and coming up with a spiritual gardening philosophy to help cleanse the soul and garden the spirit. And that's all about.
Tell us a little more about that philosophy.
Okay, in the same manner that we root out weeds and put yard waste into compost bins and allow this to compost, weeding out hate allows us to unclog our spiritual roots. It does this in a couple ways. with the right intention, asking God to unclog our roots, to take out the blockages, to take out the detachments, is like while you're actually weeding out hate or picking stones or doing any gardening task, it's actually like performing a spiritual rain dance on yourself. It's as if the divine has a spiritual galvan knife that will ionize your stony heart and ignite your inner weeds towards jump-starting your soul. So most people living around, they garden or they just go about their daily activities without, giving any thought about it. But spiritually attuned individuals understand that just by drawing up spirituality through their roots, their prism soul begins to radiate this out as rainbows in all directions, as their aura. And weeding out hate is a symbolic prayer, if you will. It's a physical prayer that allows this process to begin. If your stony heart blockages, figuratively speaking, are ionized into finely tuned spiritual quanta, then the light can have an opportunity to better illuminate it and bring all of our spiritual intentions back to the proverbial garden, as Joni Mitchell once sung.
That is a really powerful aspect, and I love the term that you use, spiritual rain dance, with this. I think it paints a perfect picture, and it is that aspect, as you say, of opening up and making that reconnection with the light in there. It is that opening factor there. And I think anybody that does that, I mean, even, if they just give any level of consciousness, it doesn't even have to be gigantic, but even a little level, I notice that when I've pulled weeds in my yard, I feel like I'm clearing something out. I'm letting a bigger piece of the light inside of me.
Well, that's right. And what I learned while taking Kabbalah, while learning Kabbalah, is that there is one prayer that is always answered by the Creator, and that is the prayer for removing our inner limitations and returning our intentions, transforming our intentions from being selfish, desiring pleasure only for ourselves, towards evolving them into deriving satisfaction and pleasure by helping others. And part of
Can you repeat that, what you just said?
There is one prayer that the Creator always answers, and that is the prayer for rooting out our inner weeds, ionizing our stony heart blockages into fine particles that can be illuminated and brought back to the source. In other words, instead of asking God or the Creator to change for us, to give us health, to give us life, to give us money or whatever, we ask God to correct our limitations. We work as partners with God to correct our limitations so that we equalize ourselves with Him.
I wanted you to repeat that because that is such an incredibly important piece right there that so many people forget. They forget that we need to remove the limitations in order to get the other stuff flowing in. Well, and that's pleasant to do or easy to do, but as you say, that is the one thing that is always answered.
Well, the exciting thing about the concept, and my publisher told me this after I wrote my first book, that the concept sits around in your head a while, and then it begins to gel, and it becomes mature, just like a grape becomes mature into wine. And what I'm trying to say is that the limitations, the weed-like limitations, have a purpose in the grand scheme of things, not only to be rooted out, but they also serve to ignite the light that you draw in, and the combination of what the Creator gives us and what we give the Creator supercharges our soul. And if we never were spiritual before, or even we were mean-spirited before, the energy behind us, the negativity, is transformed into positive energy, and we begin to emit rainbows in all possible directions. And we, just like I think it was with LinkedIn that you and I connected. I find that social networking is a powerful method for people to connect their rainbows, exchange their rainbows, and to help each other cleanse their rainbows.
And let's talk a little about that, because you had sent me some information a little bit about that, and you talked about these spiritual root connections and these different colors. You'd mentioned them. There's sapphire and violet and emerald green and ruby red and diamond white, and that somehow these are working together to purify and detoxify each other. So when we're working with these things, they're working on that. I'm going to let you explain that.
Okay, I'll try to. Sometimes I get so passionate about what I say, I forget that I have to think slowly and talk slowly.
We have lots of time, Mark.
Basically, this Kabbalist Yehuda Ashlock devised a color scheme of black, green, red, and white, corresponding to Malchut, Serampin, Bina, and Chokhmah. These are illuminations of light, basically describing the way we were created spiritually and following our Hansel and Gretel trail backwards, if you will, back up to the source. And what I discovered is that gardening with the right intention can trigger a universe of good things to happen to us and others around us. We start out in a very dark and murky, what I call spiritual sapphire state, in which we only feel a luminescence of scintillating light within us, and this is our egoistic state. We start out building our egos, and we want for ourselves, we want for our families, and we want cars, we want everything in the world. But then we find out that all this we want for ourselves is self-limiting. Well, embedded within our sapphire, if you will, is the tip of a spiritual emerald implant. It's implanted within our sapphire, and this emerald illuminates and fires up every time we begin to garden or nurture nature. Nurturing nature, root feeding trees, pulling stones from the soil, picking out weeds, feeding the trees, smoking out bugs. All these things help pattern our behavior towards how we can help garden each other's spirits, and that's where the synergy comes. Gardening is really a social activity, and community gardening all the better. There are community gardens in most localities around the country and around the world. And the exciting thing about this is when community gardeners can begin to garden together with the spiritual intention of unclogging their spiritual roots, all good things begin to happen.
And I think that is a point of where people are coming together and actually doing this as a joint effort. I know there are different places where people are working on some of these things, and it does make a difference. It does show the variation of as they say, there's strength in numbers. Absolutely.
And any volunteering activity, whether whether it's in social outreach to clean up elderly's homes, or community gardening, anything volunteer-based where people get together with the intention of helping others, helping remove some of the pain in others by actively getting out there and doing something is a wonderful thing. That is also a viable means to weed out hate. So we talked about this sapphire stage, we talked about the emerald stage, and what gardening allows people to do when they get back to nature is to begin to distinguish between genuine love and fake love. And genuine love is something that is rooted in yet another gemstone, a spiritual diamond. Genuine love is a red ruby love that you begin to differentiate between, let's say, a fake ruby love, which only leads to darkness. Genuine love is always rooted in a spiritual root connection, and all of these colors of the rainbow, the diamond, the red ruby, the green emerald, and even the scintillating dark sapphire, are emanating light from this spiritual diamond, which is God.
And wow, I mean that's really a big point, you know. And whether people are calling that God or whether they're calling it divine creator or source or whatever it is
or
somebody's
source. Yeah, source is an interesting term because the diamond light works in tandem with the red ruby light in that, let's say you have a child that's not behaving properly, you punish the child not because you want to be cruel, because you want to break up a stony heart blockage within its spiritual roots, or break up a big ego into finer particles, and then you take these finer particles and illuminate them, pattern them for society. And in the case of spiritual gardening, you pattern yourself so that these particles can return back to the roots, back to the garden, the proverbial garden.
Mm-hmm.
So if you and I were to go outside and we had a gardening project, then your rainbow and my rainbow would automatically begin to connect, and through this connection, we would develop the intention of helping each other nurture, cleanse each other's roots, or purify each other's roots. And to do this, we would draw more spiritual light through our prism souls. And if we were perfect, then the light that we would draw through our souls would be radiated out as clear light. Unfortunately, none of us are perfect. So we all have our, although what we take in is from the one and only inner ecology of the spirit, what we radiate outward is our unique eloquence. And when we cross the streams, pardon the pun, we begin to purify each other's rainbows, so that what started out as primarily maybe just dark sapphire, it begins to evolve and cleanse itself into green, red, white, and eventually the white light becomes clear, and we begin to form bonds as strong as spiritual diamonds. And we begin to feel the spiritual surge by helping others feel that spiritual surge themselves.
And I've experienced that too, where you get around somebody and that energy seems to just keep growing, because you get one person that's maybe triggers that spiritual energy in somebody else, and that elevates it, and then that charges the first energy more, and then that charges the second energy more, and it keeps going back and forth like that. And I think there's a lot of people that maybe have experienced, if not exactly the same thing, perhaps something very similar. Just that simple, even that simple aspect, you get around somebody, and all of a sudden, you know, you're not thinking these hateful thoughts. You're thinking how you want to help. Your heart is opened up, and you get the warm fuzzies inside.
Well, it's just like you and I talking tonight on the Blog Talk Radio. I don't know how many listeners we're reaching right now, but if, let's say tomorrow, 500 of them will go out and pull a weed because they heard the show. And they'll tell their friends about this weed out hate concept, and they'll tell their friends. Then we've got a movement going that can change reality. So the rhetoric that we're talking right now between you and me can make a profound impact on not only the unclogging of spiritual roots in our generation, but the succeeding generations to come.
And I encourage that, and I'm going to let people think about that for a moment here too, Mark, because you touched on something. If they all went out and pulled one weed tomorrow,
and they did it as if the entire salvation of the world depended on pulling that one weed, and with a potent enough prayer to bring down the light through our spiritual roots and cleanse humanity.
Yes, and I think about that, and I think, how powerful is that, and how many people out there have been feeling a little challenged. You know, we've got this Mars retrograde and this Saturn retrograde going on, and these different influences that are making people maybe a little more irritated or a little more reactive. And so I'm going to put that challenge out there to everybody. If you feel a little irritated or a little reactive right now, I want you to go out and pull a weed. And I want you to pull those weeds until you stop feeling reactive, because eventually you will, whether it's one weed or 5 weeds that get you there. But I think this is a really important thing, because so many people are wondering, how do I change the world? How do we start transforming and getting some balance and some light and get out of this tension? Because I think a lot of people have felt that lately over the last couple of years, and it's intensifying for a lot of people right now. And this is it. This seems to be it.
One of the things that I do a lot of is I work with a lot of kids. I do elementary school seminars, and I hand out anti-bullying themed sunflower pea seeds. And on the back of each pack of the seeds is the email address to President Obama. It's whitehouse.gov/contact. And I ask the kids to participate in the transformation of history by emailing the White House and lobbying for a globally televised Weed Out Hate campaign in which the President of the United States would ask 2 billion children around the world to do just this, pull out a symbolic weed of hatred, to honor the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. The kids of today would actually be helped completing with their small hands and fingers the great vision that Dr. Martin Luther King set before us 50 years ago. That's a game changer.
You know, and it is a huge thing. And I think, you know, what's so important is the age range, too, that you're reaching out to, because that is where we actually learn some of our biggest lessons, is at that age. That's where we first, I've had some other guests on, and they say right around that 4 or 5 year old range, which is the kindergarten range, is where we first start to really get the heavy-duty programming.
You're absolutely right. This is the time when we can break the cycle of bullying, when we can break the cycle of prejudice, when we can break the cycle of hate.
Yes. So I think that's a key factor there, that you're reaching out to that age range, because that's the age range that we've got to reach out to, and you're finding a way to do it in a way that works, which is incredible. You know, you were talking about handing out the seeds, Mark, and I had this thought come to mind. It made me reflect there for a moment of when I was back in Girl Scouts back in the day, and brownies and stuff, and every year they would have us like plant a tree. And I remember that usually they'd give out like these little pine tree saplings for people to have and to take care of in like milk cartons, and they didn't have any left when I got when I got up there, so they gave me seeds. And I watched what the other troop members had done along the way, and I watched a lot of the trees that didn't make it. And yet I had taken my seeds, and I was out there every day, and I was just pouring love into the soil. I'm like, I know I can make this grow. I know I can make it grow. And you know what? That tree not only grew, it grew, and it grew, and it grew. To the point I ended up donating it to a park nearby when they got ready to redo the park and needed some trees.
That is absolutely wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. The nice thing about sunflowers is that they grow very quickly, and they provide an excellent model for kids to relate with. What I do when I get with a bunch of kids, I ask them to help tug on 3 or 4 of the kids to help tug on a common weed of hatred, and we extract it out, and then I show them these weeds, and I say, "See this? This used to be inside of us. Now we have room to replenish what we took out with something positive." So we plant a couple sunflower seeds. And I've heard from several teachers with whom I've done this before that ground becomes hallowed ground because I've seen cases where these sunflowers grow 8 to 10 feet tall, and they see what happens when we take the negativity out of the soil, from out of our soul, these limitations, and they see what beautiful things can develop with our spirits, developing the ultimate blossom connections with God and nature and each other. It's a lesson that kids can learn year after year, over and over, reinforce their social habits, and as I said before, it can be a real game changer.
Yes, and that's the thing, too, that you bring into your work, is it's not just about taking out the negativity, and I think this is an important part of soul processes, but it's about what are you going to put in once you take that out? What are you going to plant? What are you going to grow? And that until we get rid of that toxic piece or that negative piece, we can't necessarily grow the beautiful stuff.
Well, right.
It gets
absolutely freed from the limitations that the weeds confound us with. Our spirits are free to rise, grow up, and kiss the sky. Our spirits are free to rise, to feel pockets of what I call a spiritually vivified fabric of society, through which the very act of giving surges spirituality through our souls and those around us in the matrix.
Now there's a topic we should delve into.
And you know where I got this idea? 20 years ago, I was doing a project, a lawn and garden project in Germany, for a landscape fabric company called Easy Gardener, and this membrane, their fabric was different because it used a matrix of microfunnels. So, I kept this in the back of my mind, and while I was in a Kabbalah class, I was seeing a sketch of how we draw in light and learn to reflect the light from a spiritual onto a spiritual screen to others. And I said, "Oh my God, this is spiritual weed block." I wonder if the inventors of weed block were somehow inspired by the spiritual part of it, or the other way around. I can't figure it out. and this is the future matrix of society that we're all striving for.
It's really interesting you'd bring that piece up, because I was just doing a bunch of work looking at matrices for something, for some research stuff, and to call the matrix the natural weed block. And they say there's a new matrix out there developing that is all about that elevated space. That's a fascinating piece to me, connecting to the matrix. And I think that when I look at what you're doing, and I look at your work, that every time we get in there, and people oftentimes have said, Jessie, how do we connect to the matrix? How do we connect to this plane up here that is above all this hate and everything like that? So,
well, one way, of course, is through social networking, and I see that you're on Facebook, and I believe you're on Twitter, and you do Blog Talk Radio, and on LinkedIn. So that's an excellent way.
Mhm.
But I'm working on a concept for a new book. Are you familiar with these quick response codes, these QR codes that people are beginning to print on their business cards? They look like
vaguely, but I would love for you to open that door and to talk about that.
Okay. I attended it. I got to because of the nature of what I do. I caught the attention of the U.S. Ambassador of Germany, Philip Murphy, last April, and he used my weed up hate concept to relate the ethics of social inclusion for Dr. Martin Luther King's 50-year anniversary for German students. So he asked 100 German students to come to a youth center to plant sunflowers, and I got to know a lot of other groups doing similar things that I was doing. And one of the groups was a group of high school kids, immigrant kids, who began to use this QR code concept to help visitors to Berlin, and this is also 50 years since Martin Luther King visited East and West Berlin, retrace his footsteps. So they basically interviewed eyewitnesses to Martin Luther King who heard him speak, and all the churches where they heard him speak, they slapped big QR codes on the front door, so people can scan these codes with their cell phones and get the story. Well, in the process of our discussion with the publisher, one of the things I learned is that teenage kids in Germany, and I don't know to what extent kids in the United States are doing this, they actually are printing these QR codes on T-shirts, so that you could be walking in a park or on the beach or even at parties, and people take pictures of you, and they can actually scan what you're into. And that is another way to find spiritually attuned souls, especially at all the spiritual conferences there. It's kind of speed dating for spiritual seekers.
It's a very interesting concept to think about that, and to think about the aspect of that coding on it.
It's kind of like there are now cell phones that exchange data just by clicking them together.
Right.
So you exchange spiritual data about each other, and you find out who you're compatible with and who you want to be friends with, and that's your rainbow connection.
Yeah, you know what, Mark? I am living for the day you create that. Because there would be no hiding on that, that there's no hiding once you get to that point where, this is your spiritual energy. And, that would be a really big awakener right there. That would be a really big awakener. Here's your spiritual energy. You can't lie to me about it.
Well, the nice thing about it is if you once you find out what works for another individual, you can take it on yourselves, try it out, and you can change your spiritual quotient profile. You can talk about what's your spiritual color today. Are you a diamond? Are you an emerald? Are you a ruby? Are you a sapphire? There's a myriad of possibilities. That's what's exciting. With me, I always try to I think of myself as trying to help others be part of the process, to be walking in the social setting and to see somebody you want to check out and not concentrate on their physical features, but concentrate on the big QR code, take a picture of it, go back home. find out what they're about, and then friend them on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought that up, looking at people saying, are you this, are you that, and that color range, because they've actually trained or started working with dyslexics to ask that with other dyslexics. And so there's an understanding that's being taught in that, because with dyslexics there's different colors that they give them for the different types of dyslexia, for example. And so when they put them all in a room together, they can sit there and go, I'm a blue, I'm a green, I'm a red dyslexic. And they know exactly what they're dealing with. And that's the same concept, I think, that you're talking about.
Well, right, and I'm working on with me, I never was very good with details, and I can drive an editor to drink. Because as my wife said, and she's a professor, she says, Mark, you get an idea, you want to write a book, and in 2 seconds you say, I got a book, but it takes the editor like 2 years to put it into an acceptable form. But when I first came up with the Weed Out Hate Index, it was after I visited the Dachau concentration camp, and I was thinking about all the negativity and all the hatred that was brought about during this dark period of time, and I was trying to think of a way to really make the words "never again" come into force. And my attitude was to take a great symbol like Martin Luther King's rhetoric and use that rhetoric, tie this into gardening, and in the name of Martin Luther King, to honor him, we try to empower every child in the world to pull out a symbolic weed of hatred. And when I tell people like the Elie Wiesel Foundation in New York City, or Seeds of Peace in New York City, or any one of a number of people who I talk with, this is a healthy start. You take a look at the hatred that's going on in the world today, and we should be repelled to this. This should hurl us all into spiritual desires to fix things. That's a good point that you bring up right there. We really should be appalled by the level of hate that we have in this world today. We really should be. And so yet, we're detached from it. We're desensitized to it. And the people who are feeling the stress, feeling the problems in their lives, are really the healthy ones, because at least they can identify with the pain. The others who try to laugh it off, or take drugs, or take alcohol to try to mask the symptoms, aren't doing themselves or society any favors. That is so true, and eventually I think we're going to have to, we'll have to face whatever these proverbial weeds are in our life, because you can't run from them. You can't run from them. Eventually they're going to catch up with you, one way or another. Well, one of the things that I'd like to do, and I don't know how we would distribute it, but I have here probably 100 packs of anti-bullying peace seeds. You can see the things on my website. Is there a way that I could send them to you? And I don't know whether you send out mailings to people or something. I'm a little bit confused about how the distribution will work, but I'd like to donate some to. I'd like to donate some to you to donate to your listeners. We could certainly do that, and I'm thinking maybe the easiest way to do that is maybe to have them contact you directly and just say, hey, Mark, I was listening to the show. I'd love to have a packet of seeds. Not a problem. Let's start with that and see what we can do with that, and then we can go from there. Yeah, just have them email me at Marc, M-A-R-C, at weedouthate.org. Perfect. And I think that will be a starting point for us. And again, Marc has those available, so whether you're listening live or whether you're listening in the archives, jump into this factor. Get rid of
up the weeds and plant some seeds. There's a slogan for you: get rid of the weeds and plant some seeds.
From weeds to seeds. You teach a kid to. It's a difference between rooting out weeds and establishing lifelong habits of weeding out hate.
Absolutely, and that's a great thing for people just to tune into. I think this time of year, it's the perfect time of year to be planting something new as you're pulling out the weeds that have been growing from the winter season. In that, so yeah, that's a wonderful gift. I think that's absolutely fantastic to do that.
And if you guys, anyone who's listening right now, if you want to friend me on Facebook, just mention me in the friend message. I heard your radio show last night. Will you be my friend? Automatic acceptance. And what I'd love to see is you go outside, pull out a weed, and have someone take a picture of it, or better yet, have a picture of having you and a friend, or maybe your children pull out weeds together. I'd love to put these things on my Facebook page.
See, no, and that comes back to something we were touching on earlier, doing it together. I mean, what is that power that can come from, say, a parent and a child doing this together?
It's just it's probably the most powerful and effective means to stream the light through our roots for changing reality.
So if we go out and do this activity together, let's say I've got a good friend and I say, come on, let's just come through and pull some weeds out, or something like that. What kind of bond can that create for us? Would you say that would create a bond between us in doing that together?
Well, if you, I've always said that the family that gardens together grows together, and you could take that to a new level. The family that weeds out hate together sows the seeds of love throughout their family and beyond. So this is
definitely.
This is. Are you familiar with the concept of guerrilla gardening?
Not completely, no. So I'm going to let you explain it.
You see this a lot in New York and in San Francisco, where aggressive gardeners go out and they throw garden seeds. They call them seed bombs because they're protected. They throw them in dilapidated areas and neighborhoods and in parking lots and things like this for the purpose of greening up the cities.
Okay.
And,
here in Utah, some of that.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
I'm an advocate for something called spiritual guerrilla gardening, which empowers kids to stand up to bullying, stand up to violence. If someone calls you a name, you reach down pull on the ground, and you weed out a symbolic weed. You weed out a symbolic weed of hatred for them and the bully. It's a new way to address an epidemic bullying problem in the schools. Is just to have kids saying, "Enough is enough. I want to weed out this hatred, and come help me do it."
Yes, and that's and that is the key thing. Wanting to pull that weed out for somebody else as well, and there's a certain aspect of where people have to pull their own weeds out when we talk about those internal processes, but we can certainly do our part to help them pull that out by the way we act and the way we behave and what we offer other people. Because I think when we're offering love, that helps to weed out that hate in them.
It's interesting you put this in that order because I had an interesting discussion. I was interviewed on Rockford TV channel, morning news channel, and within 4 hours I had an invitation from one of the representatives of Peter Yarrow, of Peter, Paul, and Mary's fame, to come out and visit Peter himself. And we had a discussion about spreading love and the Woodstock generation and the like. And here I am, someone who's really no one, and I'm saying, well, the problem with the flower children generation is they felt that spreading love alone without taking care of the interweeds would be a cure-all. And from my point of view, spreading love without first addressing the rooting out of interweeds is like trying to put on makeup without cleansing your pores. It's not going to work.
That's right.
So,
you've got to.
So I always tell people, pull out a weed, put in a couple seeds, and I think this is why you are such a powerful spiritual gardener yourself, and you've had so much. I wouldn't even call it luck. Your connection with the divine harmonized with the plants that you're nurturing, and the plants realize this, and the only way that they could show you their love back to you is to grow.
Yes, and it is. It's been a lot of conscious process, and I think that's it for me. Is I'm just constantly pulling out those internal weeds, and I think we also naturally find that, just like the weeds are coming up in springtime in our yards physically, that period right around now is also a period where we're starting to see them come up. We're starting to warm, we're starting to get more active again, and it is, with our influences, this is a perfect time to take these weeds out. It's a perfect time to be doing this work right now with the influences we have. I mean, you referenced the Kabbalah system earlier, and the different aspects of that, and I want to delve a little bit more into that because there really is just this whole aspect of even timing. Like I look at it from an astrology point of view. That's one of the areas I deal in, and I'm thinking this when we go through these times of upheaval or we go through these times of challenges, it is the perfect time to be removing this. It's almost like you get 10 times the effect if you do it, in the right timing. It's kind of like pulling out after you've had a chance to water the lawn a little bit versus trying to pull it out in the middle of winter.
While you brought up the Kabbalah thing, I'd like to share something with you that's going to blow your mind. There is a citation in the Zohar that states that 2,000 years before the Creator created man, he basically created the Hebrew alphabet and played with the letters. And in my spiritual gardening rhetoric, I describe this in the following manner. 2,000 years before the Creator created man, he created and mapped out the geo-spiritual universe into 22 otiyot, or letters. These are spiritual letters. And he root-fed this letter, apropos to my grandfather's root-feeding device, with a unique and heavenly combination of mercy and wisdom. And the patriarchs like Moses, Isaac, Abraham, you were talking about Moses before, they felt these sensations in their heart because these spiritual letters combined into words and then into phrases, which are later noted down in the Torah. So when you think about it, the words like rosebud, water, flower bud, tree, wisdom, bugs, locusts, all the botanical metaphors or terms you hear in the Torah, it's really saying to us what the holy books are really saying to us is that the very act of gardening with a spiritual intention has a pre-programmed spiritual benefit of cleansing our souls and gardening our spirits.
No, that's a powerful piece that I think we need to delve more into, Mark. What is the connection of some of these words? Can you share some of that for us? I mean, you mentioned, for example, rose or flower bud.
I can't get into specifics. I can only say that Kabbalists like Ashlock, like Yehuda Ashlock, said that a Hebrew letter has a vertical component and a spiritual component, or a vertical and horizontal component. The horizontal component is the state of our godly connection at any one given point in time, and the vertical component is the wisdom, the heavenly wisdom to get there. So when you combine these words into rose, water, and what have you, and actually perform these activities, it is de facto performing a spiritual rain dance on your soul to unclog to weed out hate, to unclog our roots, to ionize our stony heart blockages, and to take and illuminate and bring back the quanta back up to the source. I maintain that spiritual gardening is the most distilled method to fix society. If you believe in the power of prayer, gardening is one of those activities that is rooted in all the world's religions and in a lot of the Eastern philosophies. So if people could just start saying mine is better than yours and worry about focusing on the internality of their religious or spiritual pathways, instead of claiming we will find redemption if we weed out each other, we say, well, we can, by unclogging or weeding out hate, we can experience heaven while on earth while we're living, and that's the key. That's the difference.
Yeah, and experiencing that heaven on earth factor is a huge thing. I think a lot of people strive for that, and a lot of people seek that these days here. And I think the interesting thing when we look at the gardening factor, especially putting the action to the thought and the feeling and the whole piece, and that's where it really comes together, because it is that emotional piece that ties the thought and the action together in there. It's really, kind of like a moving prayer. It's an active prayer.
We become participants. We become participants of a cycle of spiritual life that has been going on for 6,000 years. And we become active players. Do you remember Joni Mitchell's song that became the touchstone of the Flower Children generation, called "Back to the Garden"?
Yes.
Think about the hundreds of thousands of young people who went to Woodstock looking to find their soul. Stardust. She's saying we're stardust. We're all striving to get back to the garden. Mm-hmm. And spiritually inclined individuals like you and me and your listeners have a special responsibility to the rest of us, and that is to unclog, to fortify, to strengthen, and to protect our spiritual roots at all costs, so that 8 billion stardust souls will be able to stream their way back to the garden.
That's a huge thing, the protecting the spiritual roots at all costs. I think that's a big challenge for a lot of people. They say, well, they give in on different areas. They run across people as, well, I think they like people will run across people, or they'll know somebody and they'll know that dynamic is not right with them. They know that it's creating a lot of conflict, a lot of aggravation, and instead of protecting their own spiritual roots in there, they continue that negative dynamic.
Right.
We see that.
And every soul, first of all, you can't blame anybody for the soul that they inherit. It's just like the cards that we're dealt while playing poker. We're dealt with what we're dealt with, and we as participants in this game of life, if you will, need to be aware of this and respect even those who don't respond to our rainbow emissions rainbow aura emissions. We need to keep our message, keep our rainbow intention consistent, and we will connect with people who feel what we feel, and this will happen naturally. We just have to get out there and connect. There are all kinds of spirituality converses out there. And I think you're advertising one even tonight, where like-minded souls can get out there, connect and relate with one another, share experiences, and cleanse and purify each other's rainbow streams.
Yes, and that's true. And I think keeping in mind that if somebody's not in that place,
you leave them alone for right now.
It's okay to leave them alone. It's okay to pull that weed out of your life for the time being. But you mentioned
I never advocate weeding out people under any circumstance. But what I'm saying is that the people who do not recognize their inner weeds begin to be perceived as weeds themselves, and there are so many natural attractants in life that if you find an individual that isn't naturally attracted to you and is perhaps repelled by you and you're repelled by them, you just go in the other direction.
Yeah.
And you focus with the people who understand who you are and who are willing to work with you as a group, who understand the prime directive of life is weeding out hate and sowing the seeds of peace, and you will find those people.
Absolutely. I've seen that a lot in my life where different times things come up and it seems like as soon as I stop and retune into my roots, my spiritual roots, all of those support systems show up to feed and nourish me. And, it is a very powerful thing. Like you say, you just got to turn in the other direction or something. And you brought up a key point about being a participant. I was recently reviewing through some stuff by Greg Braden that somebody had asked me to take a look at, and he brought that up as well, that it's wonderful to have all of this knowledge and this insight, but at some point you have to decide to become a participant. And it's that crossing over when you become an active participant in creation that we start to really open the big doors.
Do you remember the Wizard of Oz segment when the Scarecrow, Dorothy sees the Scarecrow and says, "Oh, I wish I had a brain."
Right.
Well, ironically, the Scarecrow's solution to his problem was looking at all along that if he would just get off the pole and begin to nurture nature and begin to till and farm and garden the wheat fields, he would begin to understand that that's the way that you get things started. In other words, when you begin to nurture nature, you learn to garden each other's spirits. You raise your spiritual attainment level, and as you raise your spiritual attainment level, all the wisdom in the universe that the Creator wants, heart and wisdom in the universe, the Creator will give you that back in increments, and this is how you attain. That brain that He wanted, and I think.
Right.
Frank Baum, I think, was the writer, the original writer of The Wizard of Oz. He virtually led the reader, or the viewer of the film, to that conclusion. Just through the storyline. But I think that so many people think that they could be passive participants and just let life go by and not actively try to make a difference in things. That they become perceived as scarecrows to others. And in other words, when the scarecrow, he was always afraid of fire. When he decided to trade in his scarecrow clothes for what I would call spiritual wetsuits. Water is a very giving, altruistic nature. So when we develop an outer skin of altruism, even though we know that inside of us is hay and it's combustible, this is our protective screen that keeps us from perishing, if you will. That when we learn to harmonize with nature by adopting nature's altruistic, loving concepts, we develop a resistance to the heat. The fire then becomes our friend, and we begin to feel the passion of the heat towards allowing all the heart and wisdom to flow inside of us and helping others to feel the same.
Absolutely, and I think you expressed that very, very well with that point. I think you really, really hit it right there with that. Now, I have somebody in the chat room, Mark, that has put out a question here, and they said, isn't the gardening spiritual tool a Zen Buddhist influence as well?
I don't know enough about Zen Buddhism to make that determination, but I do know that there's a Buddhist proverb about avoiding the weeds in your life. I try to stay away from labels and philosophies and just talk about the inner ecology of the spirit. There are a lot of pathways to get there, and I respect them all. And I think it all boils within the internality of all of these philosophies and religions is the hidden wisdom to remove the detachments as a means for freeing ourselves, uplifting our spirits.
I have to wholeheartedly agree with you on that. I think that it's not about whether it comes through one particular belief system or another particular belief system. You've made the connections with the Kabbalah, but I think realistically, if we look at any belief system out there, that there are gardening parallels in that belief system, whether we look at Druidism or Christianity or Zen Buddhist or Kabbalah or whatever it is. There's
Are you
almost
familiar
always
with the plant? Are you familiar with the wandering Jew plant?
Yes.
I see these things in parks and I read about them, and all of a sudden I start using my Kabbalah key towards oral interpreting everything. So basically, the wandering Jew plant was named after a messianic storyline where someone was condemned to wander the world for 2,000 years until the second coming. Well, with taking my Jewish spin, I look at that as 2,000 years. Jewish people have been in exile, transplanting their roots, connecting their roots, and tapping their roots throughout the world to gardeners throughout the world, waiting for this point in time when 8 billion streams of gardening intentions can stream back to the garden. So everyone has their own way of fitting into the picture. But when I listen to Joni Mitchell's song, and all of a sudden these pictures come into my head, and of how do we get back to the garden? How do we fulfill her vision?
Right.
It's just kind of the way I think.
And I think that that's a key thing. We wander out, we wander around. Whether it becomes a conscious thing or not, eventually we're going to go back to the garden.
Right. Eventually,
whether we do it on a conscious level in the body or whether we do it when we exit the body, I think we're going to return to those roots.
Well, right, and I think more and more people are becoming less satisfied by things, by buying gemstones, by buying cars, by accumulating wealth at the expense of others, and they're finding that the only genuine fulfillment in life is to help others garden themselves.
I have to say that's so true, at least it is for me, because I was actually I've been pondering that the last couple of days in particular about, how much of what I have sitting around me, and I don't have a lot. I actually have gone to a very Zen vibe in my place because I like the space and I like the openness for the energy to flow, and I like to feel like I've got all that breathing room and things. And I was sitting around looking, okay, if I needed to pick myself up and leave today, how much of this stuff do I really need? And I've been thinking about that. How much could I consolidate down to? And I have to say, I could consolidate down to a small amount.
You certainly don't need a lot. You could probably get more fulfillment by figuring out who can you donate it to that really needs it.
Yeah, there's definitely those factors where I sit back and go, okay, push come to shove, how much of this would I really need? And like I said, I don't have a lot. There's certainly certain things that I would keep because they have a spiritual value to me. That I would probably want to hang on to a certain extent, but if I absolutely needed to, could I let them all go? Yeah, I think I could. I think I'm actually at that point I could, and for me, I think about that, there's no greater fulfillment to me than to go out and to inspire other people.
You are just a wonderful, beautiful soul. I wholeheartedly agree.
I just think about that, and that just seems like I was actually thinking today, how do I take this to the next level? What do I want to do to actually, move it forward that much more? And it's amazing how all kinds of different things in our life where we get faced with opportunities to make changes, and those questions come up, and it's important to look at it and say, how can I move it forward? What weeds am I ready to let go of and pull out, and what am I going to put in their place? I think it's
because your inner garden, your inner vegetation changes every day, and it evolves from the state that you were born in to harmonizing with the ultimate garden, the garden, what I do every morning is I wake up in the morning and I go out and I think to myself, what would I do if I was the only person on earth capable of transforming the world for the better? And I go out with that intention, and at the end of the day, I thank the Creator for giving me the energy and the desire, the awakened desire, as being one of the lucky few souls who feels this desire. And I thank the Creator for allowing allowing me to draw His force through me to others.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great way to do it, and I do a lot of similar things myself of just, asking to be that gift in the world every day, and every night just appreciating what I've learned, what's come during the day, and the opportunities that I've had. Now, Marc, we mentioned earlier, you talked about your initiative that you're trying to work with in the White House. But in addition to that, what can people do to help in their own area if they would like to? Planning sustainable intention. What makes this even more important in urban areas as well?
Basically, anyone who's listening today, go to my website, contact their local schools. Maybe they have children who have been bullied, or maybe they just want to get in touch with their PTAs, through their schools, through their principals, through their classroom teachers, and just introduce the concept. Go out to the garden center, buy a few packs of sunflower seeds. Go in and offer to just do a little physical demonstration of rooting out one weed and replenishing it with seeds. These are physical things. One person can change the reality for several hundred children, if not more.
Absolutely, and it's even those little things of being willing to go out and talk and share and connect places, and I'm sure that through your website they can also get hold of you if there's places that would like you to come and speak about this or to talk about these concepts. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. If you look at weedouthate.org, there is a picture, an icon of a guy who looks like Michael Jackson. I met the guy in Cologne, Germany, a few summers ago. He's a Michael Jackson double, and when I told him what I was doing, he created a theme song for our campaign called Weed Out Hate, Sow the Seeds of Peace. And anyone who's interested can go and listen to it for free.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I probably should have pulled that and had it on the show today. But definitely go and people can go and check out that song and as well as the other factors. Your website.
It's a kind of hip song, and it's kind of like what would Michael Jackson have done if he would have known about this concept.
Mhm. Very, very cool. Now, there's also an important date coming up in about a week that you told me about. That's April 3rd, if I got the dates right here. And tell us about why that date is so important.
Basically, someone contacted me from McGraw-Hill Chase's calendar of events, and they found out about. They asked me to pick a date for Weed Out Hate, Sow the Seeds of Peace, and I picked April 3rd at that date because that is the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's prophetic mountaintop speech that he gave to a group of sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee, the day before he was assassinated. And this is when he said, so basically nationwide, it's Weed Out Hate, Sow the Seeds of Peace Day. And what makes this so significant, if you think about Martin Luther King talking about, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land, I may not get there with you. Well, spiritually speaking, the mountaintop, climbing the mountaintop is rising over your inner hate, is being able to root out all the weeds. And just imagine if kids all around the country on that day to pay homage and tribute to Dr. King would each root out a piece of that mountain of hate. So that's why I picked April 3rd.
That would be amazingly powerful to see happen.
So I said that that's coming up, and that's coming up April 3rd. And I'm always interested in googling, who picks up on these holidays, and I find that churches do. I find that senior life centers do. If you remember last fall with the political gridlock in Congress, they shut down Congress, and the chaplain, the U.S. Senate chaplain, got out and says, you need to plant a seed. Well, the next day, I had FedExed him 100 packs of my pea seed to give to every senator to get them to clean up their act.
I think that's a great idea.
I said I
sending
think
them into the government areas, Mark.
but I think just imagine congressmen, congresswomen rooting out weeds together and planting seeds of peace together on the Capitol Hill grounds. What a symbol that would set.
I would so love to see them all out there in their gardening attire, pulling weeds out of the White House lawn.
Or even on the Capitol Hill, whatever.
On any area. That would be a sight I would love to see. So that's something you're going to have to strive for to get that to happen, because the day I can see both parties all working together to do this, I'm going to just be extremely, extremely happy.
Well, this is what I call spiritual guerrilla gardening, because I take, I'm the type of guy who'll go and talk to a political candidate and hold up a big sign saying "Occupy the dream, weed out hate," and everyone claps their hands. And it doesn't really matter which party you're talking about, because that's what everybody wants.
Exactly. And I think people are so ready for that. They're so ready to have that happen now in life. I think they're fed up. They're like, I don't care about which party it is. I just want this to happen.
Well, they want something to happen good.
Now, you mentioned you've got a book out. Give us the title of that and share that with us for a couple of minutes here.
Okay, well, basically, unless you're a German speaker, my book isn't going to do you any good, because I wrote it in German, and because it was published by a German German publisher. I'm kind of looking at self-publishing possibilities for a translation of that book. But as of this point, the best thing that English speakers can do is just to reach out to me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on my website. I've distilled the gist of the book on those pages, and actually the Facebook account is kind of like a never-ending story. The book is evolving every single day.
And it does. I don't think it ever stops. I find that with my work in compassion, that it's always evolving, it's always growing, it's always developing.
And you are one very spiritual and compassionate lady, and I just wanted to let your listeners know that right now.
Well, thank you. I was just sitting here thinking, I think one of these times I'm going to, whenever I hit the road next or something, or whenever I've got something and I know what I'm dealing with people and things, I'm going to have to call you. I'm going to have to call you up and have you send me some seeds, and we'll have to give them out maybe at a fundraiser or something one of these days, and weed out hate and activate compassion.
Well, right, and one reason I started in Germany is people like to think the negative stuff about Germany, but they forget that Germany is where kindergarten was invented. This in kindergarten, the 19th century pedagogues knew early on that exposing kids to gardening was an excellent way to exercise their spirits as well as their mind and bodies. And in my opinion, this spiritual force is very powerful, and it's probably Germany's most important export. That's an interesting piece, and probably most people didn't realize that that's where kindergarten started. And ironically, a lot of European and countries around that region put a huge emphasis on nature. I noticed that from working in the tourist industry for many, many years, and notice that they have a huge emphasis on that. They'd rather go hike a trail and see nature than they would to, dine in fine cities for the most part. So very fascinating.
Definitely, Mark. Is there any other plugs that you would like to get in for events you have coming up or anything else that you have going on?
Really not. I think spirituality is a very personal process, and we can attain we can surge spiritual light through our spiritual roots by reaching out to others, inspiring those who are willing to connect with our rainbows, to do the same through whatever rhetorical eloquence we have with you. It's being an excellent talk host personality. If you're a painter, you do it with colors on canvas. If you're a musician, you do it with your voice and songs. And with me, it's with spiritual gardening.
Wonderful.
Whatever talent that God has given you, you use.
And that's what you just summed up perfectly right there for the night. Whatever God has given you, divine, source, creator, whatever term you want to call it by, use it. Because it's there and it's meant to be used, not lie dormant. Get out there, participate in what you've been given. Mark, it's been a absolute pleasure to have you on here, and I just truly, truly, truly love the work that you're doing. I see this as being so critical and so important to society and culture and people, and just it's so universal, and I just absolutely love it. And I know that your endeavors are making a difference each and every day.
Well, I do thank you, Jesse, for allowing me to be part of your world today. And if anyone has any questions, please, comments, good or bad, because I learned from the bad comments too, please reach out to me on Facebook, and I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. And so you can find Marc on Facebook. He's on LinkedIn. Again, his website is weedouthate.org. And for anybody that tuned in late, Marc is offering to anybody who would like his Seeds of Peace, which he will be happy to send out to you. All you need to do is go in and email him, which is Marc, M-A-R-C, at weedouthate.org.
Weedouthate.org.
I almost had it in there,
like I said, I have a limited supply of these things, but let's say the first 50 people or 100 people that email me, I'll try to get them out to you.
Perfect. And so if you do that, Marc will send them out, and you can start your own things going too. Again, Marc, it's just been a pleasure, and I greatly appreciate your time this evening with us.
Hey, you take care and continue doing the great work that you're doing.
Thank you. I definitely will. Next week on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, we have Amy Stevens on the show, and she's going to be sharing her work in green interior design and sustainable building. Perfect as we're moving into that time of year that we're starting to think about home projects. My books on relationships have been released, and you can find links to check out those books at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com, and just go ahead and click on there. You'll find the information of how to get the books on there, among many, many other things. And that's all about finding, developing, and maintaining your perfect relationship. And you'll also learn how to understand what your partner is thinking, feeling, needing, and how to communicate in ways to strengthen your relationship and avoid the drama. I also released several events for 2014, which you can learn about at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge.eventbrite.com. And again, on my website, there's also video tips on there. You can look at upcoming and archived shows that are on there, find ways to connect with me along the way. There's a whole section there for Main Street Universe on there as well, because that'll give you a chance to learn about all the different hosts that we have on the network here. And that information is all listed at the bottom of our show description, but I did want to say it just for those people who can't see the show description. They're listening in from one of our streaming areas there. And in addition, I also have affiliate opportunities available. So if you'd like to, look at some of the events, or you're thinking, hey, Jesse, I really love the work you do, and I'd be happy to send some people your way or something like that, there are affiliate opportunities you can take a look at. Hey, we're just finishing out the March special deal, and that is if you enroll in any of my seasonal events, you can still receive 25% off. So it doesn't matter which one you enroll in as long as you register before the end of this month. And you'll just use promotional code 2020 for those events. And actually, if you just go onto my webpage, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com, all the information's right there on the home page for you. You can check it out. I will be changing up the special because we'll be turning the month before we come back on here next week. So you'll also have to check in there and see what the April special is going to be. Don't forget that we've got several shows here on Main Street Universe throughout the week. Sunday nights we have Darren Bouquet, who's a reader at Madame Laveau in New Orleans, doing spiritual insights. So he talks a little bit about spiritual things and processes, but then he also throws a couple of readings in there as well. Monday nights we have Randy Goldberg, and he does Vedic astrology, and he sometimes also brings on some guests to his show. Tuesdays we have Susan Weed, who is sharing her work in herbs and natural plants. As a matter of fact, this past Tuesday she was talking about honey, and it was actually very, very interesting. So if you missed that, you might want to go back and catch the archives. Wednesday nights we have Daniel and Janice and Brett, and they are running our flagship show, Main Street Universe. And Janice is actually going to be starting up her own show on the network, so we'll have to watch and see exactly when that's going to be. Thursday is Queen Mother Umaku, who looks at Egyptian culture. Fridays, earlier in the day, we have Kevin Baird walking on the sidewalk, and he works with his Horizon Oracle Journeys deck, which is a deck he created. You can learn more about that deck at templeofgaia.com. And then, of course, Friday nights, right here, Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. This is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. And again, thank you to all of our listeners, not only on Blog Talk, but also those streaming live on PEN or Para Encounters Network, Streamfinder, and TalkStream Live, as well as those catching our podcast at iTunes, TuneIn.com, or the YouTube version of our show as well. And a special thanks tonight to our sponsor, Earth Goddess Rising. And stay tuned for a little message there from them. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed the show this evening, to share it with others. It's going to be available at this same link in our archives. It's available immediately after this show finishes in just a few minutes. It does take me up to 24 hours, though, to get that YouTube version up, just to let you know. And I'm going to leave you tonight with our song called Yearning For, also known as Over and Over. It's by Shemshai, great group that I connected with in Arizona area, and now, of course, they're just traveling the world everywhere, enjoying their dream and living their life and doing amazing music. And you can also check out their music, by the way, at www.shemshai.com. That's SHIMSHAI.com. May you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I want to say thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again right here next week on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. Have a truly, truly amazing week.
The first Earth Goddess Rising Retreat is set for July 11, 12, and 13 of 2014 and will be held in stunning Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Come join us with other men and women from around the world for yoga, meditation, classes, organic meals, dance and music festivities, healing workshops, hot mineral springs, and more. Want more information? Visit earthgoddessrising.com and cash in on the early bird ticket sales, earthgoddessrising.com.
And if I could see what makes me blind, I would soar to the edge of my mind, and to touch what seems unreal, just to show you the way that I feel. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune, caught in a balance of sun and moon. learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets that you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart is still yearning for. Yearning for. When all we have is all we need, all that we ask for shall be received. And we see in eye to eye, one within love before the divine. And we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God and man. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune of life in the circle and love in bloom. Over and over, life is your lover, learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets that you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart is still yearning for. Over and over, life is your lover, learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets that you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence